Literally a new one. Just popped up. All right. We about to get this party started, y'all. Man, listen. It's so much stuff happening today that I can't even keep up, y'all. I ain't gonna lie. It's a busy day in the news. For real. Hey, Val. Good evening. Thank you for checking in. I see you. Kim Shelton. Yes, ma'am. Yes, you did. You caught us on time tonight. That's what's up. So, man, I already know I'm gonna miss a whole bunch of stuff because it's so much going on in the news today, man. It's just a busy Friday, but we're gonna try to cover some of it because I got some stuff that I'm gonna run past y'all today. Today's history is gonna be real interesting. I try to make it that way, but in the meantime and in between time, we're gonna get this party started. So let's go.
Or door number 3.
Oh, wow. Oh, all right, okay, all right. No, wait, okay. All right, no, wait. Oh, wait, Monty. Door number... Yeah, do it. No, wait, hold on.
All right. So, woo. Anyway, Valencia, I see you. You and Mr. Huggle, thank you for checking in with me tonight. So, first of all, I'm gonna jump right in because this is something that's breaking. I just got wind of this like a couple of minutes ago, and I'm gonna go ahead and throw this up there right quick. Just found out about this. Apparently, here in Tennessee, somewhere in Tennessee, fellow got his head peeled by them folks. He was they have charged him with resisting arrest, and they had him pulled over. He was walking down the street minding his own business. I ain't gonna show y'all the whole video because I don't feel like doing all of that right now. But here's where the altercation apparently began. Now, keep in mind, the gentleman is handcuffed. Why does it take 3 officers to walk into a car? Oh, there's one punch to the back of the head. Billy clubs, batons.
412, start calling down.
Oh, he's calling for backup. Let's see, there's 4 officers there. 3 officers, 4 officers there, but he's calling for backup. Imagine that. For one unarmed black man. And they're beating him with batons while handcuffed.
Put your leg down. Put them down now. Put your legs down. Put your legs straight out. Legs down. Down.
All right, well, that's enough of that. We get the point. This is something that apparently these videos just came out, and this is something that just happened in the last, on Tuesday. Let's see, on Tuesday, the 23rd. Yeah, this just happened. So these videos apparently just got released, and here we are yet again in another situation, another scenario where another unarmed black person is being beaten by the police. And we're going to get back to that. First thing I want to discuss tonight is the same thing that's going on all in the news and what's happening right now. Oh, you know what? And even before I do that, I'll get to him in a minute. So anyway, look, y'all, coronavirus. Let's talk about coronavirus. Coronavirus? We're going to talk about coronavirus. Why are we going to talk about coronavirus? Well, because coronavirus ain't went nowhere. And I don't think coronavirus gonna go nowhere. don't know about y'all, but that's what I think. Anyway, I want y'all to think about something. If you know anyone who has had or who has been affected by this virus, I want y'all to understand something. There are currently 331 million to be closer to exact in this country, in these United States. 331 million and some, right? If you know someone who is or has been affected by coronavirus, you need to give some serious thought to what that means. You need to understand exactly how close that is to you in the grand scheme of a populous country of 300 million people. And if you know more than one, I want you to understand how close that is to you exactly. And how, if you are not careful, how quickly and easily it will affect you even more. That is something that needs to be given, that a lot of thought needs to be given to. Excuse me 1 second. There we go. Okay, so with that, here we are with an administration. None of it is I mean, at this point, nothing really surprises me with this current administration. But we are faced in this country at this time with lack of leadership. We are faced with a person who has no humanity, a person who has managed to take a virus of all things and try as hard as he can to play political football with it. Now, how you do that, I have no idea. But all I do know is that it is playing with the health and well-being of the people throughout this nation. And that is not okay. There are far more, and this is my opinion, and I have heard it said before as well, but there are far more people in this country with this virus than we are aware of, I believe. Thank you, Sherry. I appreciate that accolade, and I do what I can. All I'm trying to do is make this stuff relevant, make it stick, and give food for thought. Fast Esther, how you doing, doll? It's good to see you. Cynthia, thank you for checking in. There are people walking around here that are asymptomatic, y'all. I see you, Gina. Asymptomatic, for those of you who are not sure what that means that there are people who are walking around with this thing alive in their bodies, and it doesn't affect them quite the way that it does others. I, based on what we've all seen so far, have come to the conclusion that coronavirus affects different individuals in different ways. I've even heard that if you have different blood types, it affects you differently based on what your blood type is. Now, this is something I've heard. That's nothing that's written in stone. Don't say I said it. You might have heard it here, but you didn't get it from me. It don't matter. Anyway, the point is that there are people walking around here, and we don't quite understand. I don't even think the doctors quite understand the depth and where this thing, where we are with it, or even have the ability to contain it or control it, especially since people won't contain it or control it themselves. And as it turns out, the governor of Florida, just in the last couple of hours, has managed to backtrack on his nonsense. Jaquilla, thank you for checking in. I see you. he has decided that it is necessary to begin closing bars and things of that nature after he stood up next to Pence, the other village idiot, and they tried to make it like, oh, well, we're going to let people self-govern. We're not going to make any mandate on masks. You can wear it if you want to, but be responsible. All the while wearing a mask himself, which speaks volumes. So today I saw where Dick Cheney, old Dick Cheney, Republican diehard, Bush's boy, said real men wear masks. They ain't playing that game. There are some people out here with common sense. Deborah, I see you. Thank you for stopping by. And I'm going to say this much. At least, you know, I didn't like Dick Cheney when he was in office. I used to think that he was something like the devil incarnate. But now, if I never in a million years would have thought that anybody could have beat Dick Cheney in them Bush years. But these guys that's in here now, I'm speechless. I mean, it's like they are so corrupt and have done so many foul things to the point where they do foul things and nobody bats an eyelash anymore. How scary is that? It's like y'all are that terrible that people don't even talk about your foulness anymore. Well, it also turns out that Trump took another defeat today because it was deemed unconstitutional that he could take money and funnel it from the military to build his wall. He got shot down yet again today. See, I told you, there's a lot of stuff going on today. I know I'm going to miss a lot of it, but that's okay. You know, well, and whatever I missed today, we're going to get back to it because I got some other real deep stuff that we're going to deal with a little bit later on. We're going to tie together some of this other stuff that's happening. But I want y'all to understand that this country is continuing to operate in a manner that does not benefit the citizens of these United States. It does not benefit the people. And I don't give a damn what your politics are. Your politics are not going to keep you alive. That's the stupidity in thinking that, oh, they're wearing masks because it's going to make me look bad, because those are his words. The Orange Julius, Agent Orange, the mango maniac bunker bitch. He's upset because he thinks if people put on masks that somehow he's going to look bad. And I think that's the most ridiculous notion running. But then that's something that plays in his head because he lives in the bubble. Anyway, there has to come a point where we as a country decide that we need better. We got to do better, y'all. It's time to vote here coming up. And all I can say is exercise that right. How they say, vote early and vote often. That's something they'd love to hear because everything he claims everything is voter fraud. When it doesn't benefit him. Well, he's going to claim voter fraud after he loses this election. And I guarantee you, you heard it here first. And I've been saying it. He will not get another term. And like I said, and I have said on many occasions, some of you here have maybe have heard me say it before. It won't be none of us that get him out. It's going to be his own people. And as you can see, the cracks in the foundation are starting to widen because he continues to place politics and money over human life. It's amazing to me that we spend a lot of our time in this country talking about other countries and their atrocities against humanity. Yet we are the country with the most incarcerated people in the world. In fact, our incarceration rate is so high that other countries combined still do not reach the level that we are at. And they host billions of people sometime. We have countries that have populations that are way higher than ours with a far lower rate of incarceration. And that ought to tell you something. We literally have people in cages. We have children in this country in cages. In case anybody forgot. See, that's another one of those been swept under the rug. Everybody forgot about all of the people coming across the border that have been left indefinitely without any relief whatsoever, particularly from our country, which there are mixed feelings about that. I'm not going to get into whether they should be or shouldn't be, but I am going to say this: they're still human beings and they don't deserve to be locked in cages. So if we're going to send them back, send them back. If we're going to keep them, let them in, but don't leave them sitting in cages. That's ridiculous. And it's inhumane. And in the typical nocturnal, dark, late night slithering behavior that we're accustomed to from this administration, last night it turns out that the Solicitor General of the United States, this Noel, I can't think of his last name, went before the filed with the Supreme Court that they want the entire Affordable Health Care Act struck down. They want the entire thing taken away now. Since they gutted it a couple of years ago, now they want the whole thing taken away, which of course will eliminate the main provision that most people should care about, which, and I don't care what your how much money you make, the pre-existing condition clause that's in there. Now, if they remove that, no longer will you be able to have a situation where you can have diabetes or high blood pressure or anything else and go and get insurance. You will be denied, or you'll be charged so much money that you can't afford it anyway, so it won't make any difference. And needless to say, that they cannot continue to have any of it. They won't have that provision will go away with the striking down, because you can't keep that provision without the rest of the law around it. And they want the entire thing struck down. But of course, they always wanted it struck down, only because they wanted to destroy the legacy of an individual who did a lot to try and make this thing possible. Now, the problem I have is that when people start to tear down Obamacare and say that it didn't work for them and it was a bad idea, I think there's a misconception there. It was a great idea. And in fact, many people forget that Mitt Romney enacted the very same sort of plan in his own state that worked well. Well, the thing that people forget is that the level of opposition that Barack Obama was up against during his tenure, that he couldn't get things done on his own. He was able to get that done, and maybe it wasn't perfect. And like anything, it needed to be tweaked. But let's just imagine what would have happened if everybody had got on board and tried to make it the best that it could be, instead of fighting everything at every turn and input ideas and input resources that would make it the best that it could be for everybody throughout the entire nation. Imagine what would have happened if bipartisan support had made that thing become what would have benefited everybody in this country. But we'll never know that, because during those times, everything became partisan. A lot of people forget that Mitch McConnell was one of those who openly and outwardly made it his business to say that he wasn't going to vote for anything for Barack Obama. They actually had a meeting about it. He was one of the people who said that we're going to make him a one-term president. Well, that didn't work. And he's still bitter and resentful, and we can tell that by the way he runs the Senate now. I hope and pray that his people in his state realize that he is a parasite and they get rid of him, because he's not doing any good for anybody, not even them. And they don't even see that. That's the sad part about it. I hope they notice. So we'll see what happens there. And of course, we know we're going to continue to hear lies come out of Washington and do everything they can to keep people. They don't care what they do with people. All he cares about is his bottom line and his reelection, which ain't going to happen. He can forget about that. That's not going to happen. So we'll see. I have never seen anybody lie so much since the time it's just amazing. And in case you didn't notice, they say that 500,000 more people have actually applied for Obamacare since coronavirus came to be. All these people who lost their jobs, and I guarantee you, I'm just willing to bet you there's one or two sprinkled in there who didn't want the Affordable Health Care Act. And I just bet you it's benefiting them now. Just a little bit. I'm willing to bet that. Ain't no fun when a rabbit got the gun. It's always something when it's your time. You never think it's going to happen to you until it does. Well, found out today that this is another one of today's breaking stories. I'm going to say a name. I'm going to see how many of y'all know this fella. His name is Thomas Blanton. Thomas Blanton is the last surviving KKK member who was involved in the Birmingham church bombings. He was the last one of that group who bombed that church and killed those 4 little girls in Alabama. He died today. So I'm sure they're throwing a party for him. The devil's waiting with their pitchforks. They're going to tear his ass up coming through the gates. So that'll be all right by me. Thomas Blanton, dead. The age of 82 today. Last of the KKK. We ain't going to miss him. Have a good one, homie. Should have been sooner. But what are you going to do? Anyway, this brings me to my other points. I don't know, the other day when I was on, we talked about the black codes and the laws in regard to black people right after slavery in 1865. The Emancipation Proclamation, right? Remember we talked about that. Well, from 1867 and 1877, right in there, that was where Reconstruction started. And we were actually allowed to vote. And we actually were elected to high offices. But I found out there was this little organization called the White League. Now, I'm giving you just a little bit of history on this one. The White League was a group, I guess kind of like the KKK, except they didn't wear hoods and they wasn't scared. And they openly opposed civil rights or rights at all for black people. Found out that the White League attacked a courtroom in Colfax, Louisiana on April 13th of 1873. And they murdered over 150 blacks. And this attack was dubbed the Colfax Massacre. It's really amazing to me how many massacres we've had in this country, but we don't get to hear about it in our whitewashed history books. It is just amazing to me that I learn about a new massacre, like they're there for the taking. All you got to do is look. It's incredible how many times we've had a massacre of black people. Anyway, what happened was they had rules, if you will, back then. Well, of course, you know, everybody had rules against murder, but there was a thing called the Enforcement Act, which governed everybody, the rest of the world, from taking the life or trying to take away the rights and privileges of people who were free. Freedmen. That's what everyone was called at the time, freedmen. If you had been a slave, you were a freedman. Well, they were there because they didn't like this idea. And when they did what they did, they were actually arrested and they were charged for these crimes. And it was said that their charges stemmed or were because of the Enforcement Act. Well, as it turns out, because they weren't a government entity, the Enforcement Act didn't apply to them. So since the Enforcement Act didn't apply to them, they basically could do what they want. And they did. So it kind of caused a little lightweight civil war down there between the whites and the blacks. Well, it turns out that, and that was a Supreme Court case, by the way. It was a case called the United States versus the Cruikshank versus Cruikshank. And it kind of took all of the meat out of the Enforcement Act. And because of the White League being a private entity and not a government organization, that nothing applied to them. So it made it where other organizations could go about violating the rights of black people. And this was after the Black Code laws, and it began the era of Jim Crow. So the Jim Crow era, and let me show you here. Let me introduce you to Jim Crow. Now, Jim Crow was a fictitious character, if you will, or caricature. And Jim Crow was, they say there's a lot of origins. There's a lot of different origins for the name Jim Crow. One was like to Jimmy, like Jimmy a lock, and with a crowbar. Or then they said that there was, like, they called black people crows back then because, crows are black. And they would go into, there was a lot of different reasons why this was used. Anyway, the Jim Crow laws are part of what began the segregation of the South. Now, because we had the Enforcement Act and things like that, right? Most of that got taken down around 1895, and Plessy versus Ferguson. Now, I was told on yesterday by someone, because I try not to, I don't assume that the people who listen to this show and the people who listen to me know everything. But on the other hand, I do skim over some things. And so, in the vein of clarity, I want to make sure that everybody understands what Plessy versus Ferguson was. We hear about it and we've heard about it, but a lot of people don't really know exactly what that means. Well, it was a court case, of course. And it basically amounted to segregation by legislation. Okay? Separate but equal. So in other words, rather than black people be able to sit with white people on a train, which that was what the main case was about. It was a train and a train car. And I'm going to tell you again, like I always do, don't listen to me. Look it up. Check it for yourself. Look up Plessy versus Ferguson and understand what that meant. And it was a separate but equal. This is where you got the white water fountain, black water fountain, white restroom, black restroom, and so on, right? And it was determined to be constitutional to have these things. And this way, white people didn't have to be bothered with black people, and black people didn't have to be bothered with white people, and so on. So this is also a time when they came up with poll taxes and literacy tests. And we talked about that when they wanted to know how many bubbles in a bar of soap and things of that nature. And I'm telling y'all all of this for a reason, and I'm gonna get to that. And when they had these literacy tests and these poll taxes, understand that in separate but equal, the white people were grandfathered in. Now let's look at that word grandfathered. They were grandfathered in because their grandfathers had legacy in this country. We, as black people, couldn't say that because our ancestors had been slaves. And because of slavery and what was the 3/5 of a man law, we did not have the ability to be grandfathered in. So even your most illiterate and poor white would grandfather in as eligible to vote, where blacks did not. So of course, that left us once again disenfranchised as usual, right? Now, here's what I want to get to about that. We take a lot for granted right now today. We think that things cannot be changed. Now, if you remember, I just said that right after the Emancipation Proclamation, which was the freeing of, or should I say, the abolishment of slavery, except in the 13th Amendment, except as a prisoner for being a criminal. Okay, we went over that the other day. Understand that from the 1865 all the way to 1895 almost, we had all the same rights just about that we have right now today. And wasn't nobody tripping. Not really. You know, you're going to have your racist groups. We've got them right now. There's no real difference. But understand that someone put some laws in the game to change that and remove those rights and create separate but equal. The black codes, the Jim Crows. My point to you all is this. Do not think for 1 second that this cannot happen again. We must be diligent and very, very, very careful. When you don't know your history, it is doomed to be repeated. You got to understand where you are. If you don't know where you've been, you can't know where you're going. You must understand that if, for example, the Mango Maniac ends up back in office for another 4 years, baby, you're going to come so close to what I'm talking about right now happening all over again. You got to remember, we got more history in this country of being enslaved and in chains than we do of being free. We take it for granted. We think we don't have nothing still to fight for. Man, y'all better wake up. That's all I'm saying. So today, I was watching a couple of older documentaries, and I kind of had an epiphany. It probably shouldn't be. It shouldn't be a shock. But it occurred to me, and this is funny in a way, it occurred to me that during Jim Crow, white people were very quick to point out the wrongdoings of blacks. In other words, if you were a black person walking down the street and you didn't step off the sidewalk to allow them to pass, you would be pointed out and spoken to harshly, if not worse. When you thought about looking at the white water fountain to try to take a drink, you would have been called out. If you attempted to use the white people's washroom, of course, you would be probably beaten. Now, it reminds me of every time I see one of these new videos pop up where the Karens of the world are going around calling the police and saying, they did this, come get them. Very same thing that happened to our ancestor Emmett Till. Very same thing we watch happen over and over and over on social media today, where white citizens make it their business to call the police on black people. They weaponize the police against black people because they don't like the way black folks move about in the world. Because we are, as I heard one racist white person say, you're mighty happy with yourself, ain't you, boy? Because we're not supposed to be happy and moving about in the world in a way that is not full of sadness or anger. part of the reason why the police departments find it so easy to make us into the poster child of anger and say that there's something wrong with us because we are not what they say we should be. And we're what they want us to be so that they can use that anger and hate of their own against us. The only difference between them in the Jim Crow era and those now is that they'll use any other excuse to mask that hatred because they're cowards. They won't say, I don't like black people. I don't like what you're doing because you black. They'll say, you're not supposed to be doing that. That's against the rules, or some nonsense like that. And because they still want to feel superior. So, in their attempt to be superior, they then call the authorities. Come and get this, it could be a 3-year-old, big black Negro off my lawn. It'd be a 5-year-old who fell over on his bicycle. Well, I got to thinking about all of these types of atrocities, and it brings me to a very important historical figure that I want to talk about today. But actually, before I go there, I want to talk about a situation that apparently just came to pass on, well, it happened in February, and it's just been released. So here we go. Take a look at this.
Suspicious activity? Where about?
They say they got someone.
View that camera. What are you guys doing?
We're out here investigating some suspicious activity,
Well,
sir.
I'm not doing anything. I've been around cameras, so I ain't been doing nothing.
All right. So what were you doing over there at the
Walking around
Walgreens?
waiting up for Western Union. Call my sister right now. She's
Huh?
in Florida. You have a cell phone, call her. Don't
Call
try me
who?
like this. Call my sister in Florida. Don't do this. What are you doing? Oh my God! What are you doing?
Put your hands behind your back.
Like you told.
Put your
What
hands.
are you doing? Oh, Jesus.
Slam to the ground.
Oh, please.
Put
I
your
wasn't
hands.
doing anything. Oh my God. Jesus. Oh my God. You broke my wrist.
This guy, I had just got contact with him. I thought this was only the one. No, that's why I was trying to. No, because there's two different people.
So let me break down for you what just took place. So apparently, this guy was walking along minding his own business. And like many of the other situations that we're so familiar with, he fit the description. How many times have we heard that? Well, his name is Antonio Arnello Smith. He's 47 years old, and he filed a federal lawsuit on Friday, today, alleging that Valdosta, Georgia, police officers injured him after body slamming him. And the city of Valdosta has been named in the lawsuit, as well as all of the officers involved. Now, here's what happened. Apparently, this guy had been at the store, basically minding his own business. Went in there to shop, got what he was going to get, came on out of there. Well, it turns out that there was another guy in another store right in the same area who apparently had been harassing patrons, begging for money, screaming, making a lot of noise, that kind of thing. So they called the police to get him to leave the area. Well, and they said that this guy also had felony warrants. Well, they stopped this guy. Now, it appeared to be a black officer who stopped this guy that you just watched on video. And when he stopped him, he was asking him questions. He had gotten his ID. He never resisted arrest, never said anything out of the way, gave him his ID willingly and told him he wasn't the person they were looking for, as you saw. Well, apparently, this other officer walked up, grabbed him from behind in a bear hug, and then demanded that he put his hands behind his back. Now, we all know that you can't put your hands behind your back when somebody got you in a bear hug. Well, it turns out they had the wrong guy. There were two guys walking around in blue jeans and a hoodie, or brown hoodie. So this particular gentleman, this officer, he just rolls up, body slams the guy, breaks his wrist. So according to the Valdosta Police Department, they feel like they did the right thing. And yet, accidentally, they had a miscommunication. So the miscommunication was that they had, well, he said they stopped the right guy that was causing the problems at the Walgreens, not the right guy. He said it's just unfortunate he was not the one with the felony warrants. So that's basically an attempt to protect their officers from their wrongdoing. My problem is this. It doesn't matter if he was the guy at the Walgreens harassing people. He was cooperating, and there was no reason whatsoever for him to pick that man up off the ground and slam him down that way. The other officer, who was supposed to be in charge of that particular investigation, was basically pushed aside by this white officer so he could body slam this black man. And the other officer then said later, I thought maybe I missed something. You came up and you grabbed him. I thought maybe I missed something. He didn't miss anything. The one who missed something was the cop who grabbed him and slammed him to the ground wrongfully. He is suing the city and those officers for $700,000. My personal opinion is that's not enough money for his pain, suffering, and humiliation. They need to be made to pay more. I also think that those officers' pensions should be a part of the lawsuit. They should have to pay for that. Skip the insurance, skip the taxpayers having to pay for it. That officer should have to pay for it out of his own pocket. Even though we know he don't have it, he ought to be made to pay that man until he pays his portion of what that lawsuit should be. This brings me to another point. We are lucky, he is lucky, that all he got was a broken wrist. We've seen these situations end all too often in death, the death of another unarmed black person. You would think that at some point this would stop. Now, the only reason I'm not, I guess, really jumping up and down, although I should be, is because this happened back in February before all of the things that are going on now were taking place. But let's think about this, though. When we watch these black officers play along to these white officers, I really don't think a lot of black officers realize the damage that they're doing. They don't see how they're being used. Without black officers turning a blind eye to white officers abusing unarmed black people just because they're black and because officers are white, this wouldn't be happening. It couldn't happen. See, you got to remember something. When somebody else black stands by and allows these things, there's a level of validation that takes place. See, there's a level. This is the same reason why when you watch Fox News, for those of you who actually will turn it on, because I do rarely, but when you do turn it on, you always see some token Negro they post up there to say all the things that they want to hear to validate their hatred and their evil, to validate all of their dehumanizing behavior and words. They use one. They always find that agent provocateur to just stand up there and prop them up and say, this is how black people feel. And they use that person as a spokesperson for everything black. And we all know that's a crock of crap. I'm doing so good. I haven't cussed. Anyway, these black officers, instead of trying to make things better, they buy into the fallacy of criminalized black skin, whether they realize it or not. They make these white folks feel like what they've done is okay and it's the right thing to do, because even a black man will stand by and let me do it. They don't realize they're allowing others to dehumanize their own people and get away with it. They play into the stereotypes that allow policing to remain the way that it is and not go unchecked. This is why police reform is so damn important. This is yet another reason why. Black officers need to get their head in the game and understand and stop thinking that they're a part of the program when it comes to the blue team. Because let me explain something to you. Even the police officers that you think got your back, they don't. I know they think they do. Because guess what? Black officers get held accountable for their wrongdoing. Oh, yeah. You going to jail. Proof? In 2017, Mohammed Noor, he shot a lady named Justine Rosinski. Or Rosinnikas. I can't even pronounce it. Anyway, she's from Australia. That was up in Minneapolis. And she approached his patrol car to report that she had been basically raped. Well, he shot and killed her. Unarmed white woman. But he got found guilty of murder. He's doing time now. 2019, he went to jail. Who had his back then? See? Louisiana. 2 cops shooting at a suspect who was fleeing and a bunch of other stuff. I guess his son got killed in that particular altercation. And both of them went to jail. And one of them actually got 40 years. One got 7.5. They're not going to protect you. I know you think they will. They won't. And it's ridiculous. It saddens me when I watch people get used up this way. And this is also, again, yet another reason why we need police reform so badly. It makes you wonder if there shouldn't be a United Nations investigation of this country and the way our law enforcement works and the way we do things. The only problem with the United Nations, though, and anyone else who would accuse us in this country of being guilty of atrocities where our humanity is concerned, the people in this country, it's because nobody can kick our ass. See, you can only make demands when you have the power to do it, and nobody is willing to try that. They don't want to test that water. You know what I mean? Check this out, y'all.
Hey, what are you doing? Huh? Jaywalking, stop right there!
What?
Stop right there! Stop! Well, no! Stop! No! Get down right now! Get down on the ground! You resisting arrest! No, cooperate!
I can't breathe.
You know jaywalking is against the law! It's a federal offense! What are you doing? Don't you move! Don't you touch me! I'm gonna back up! This is Officer Shooter responding to a request for backup. What seems to be the problem here? This man was jaywalking. All right, stand back. Let me handle this. Son, put your hands up right now. Son, I'm asking you to put your hands up. Son, if you do not put your hands up, I'll be forced to use this firearm to dispose of your threat. Son, are you listening to me? Don't you play dumb, son. He's reaching for... All right, you asked for it, motherfucker.
Now, that has a satirical value to it. However, it ain't funny. Sadly, it's all too real. This is where we are and what we have to deal with. Now, before I go into my next little segment here, I want to say, I want to give shout out to my man Torian. That's my guy who started developing my music for the show, y'all. I want to give a shout out to my man. I appreciate him. Y'all want to check out some of his beats, you can catch him on Twitch or SoundCloud. My man Torian, he got it going on with the music, y'all. And for those of you who like my hair, I heard got some shout outs the other day from a couple of people. That's my girl Tina over at Lifestyle Salon right here in San Antonio. She does a fantastic job. Y'all need to check her out if you local. Anyway, so dig this, y'all. We were talking about the way the Jim Crow laws and things of that nature work and the way stuff goes, right? Well, I want to talk about a gentleman who, okay, let me back up. Y'all remember the whole Bubba Wallace thing that's been going on over the last couple of weeks. Well, as it turns out, and this is like, I guess, a sort of an update to that story, something messed up done happened. And let me tell y'all what it is. So it turns out that Bubba wasn't even the one who, of course, reported that the noose was hanging in his garage stall. Anybody that's not up on this story, let me just give you a quick breakdown. There's a NASCAR driver, the only black one in NASCAR currently, who people were supporting and rallying behind because it was said that his someone had put a noose in his garage prior to a race, or a garage that he had been assigned to. Well, it turns out that he's not the one who actually reported it. It was someone else in his camp. And so they did this big investigation, had the feds come in and all of this thing here, right? So when it turns out that the noose had already been there a prior season, a year earlier, and it had just remained there because they were using it as a garage door pull because some wise ass thought it was cute to make a hangman's noose as a garage door pull last year. He then became, they started to criticize him and saying that he made a big deal out of nothing. And of course, white folks already was looking for something to jump on him about. They just couldn't find nothing, and that was it. So they said now everybody was talking crazy to him like he pulled some kind of a hoax. Well, the thing is, it was somebody else that reported it and made light of it. They let him know what was going on. So it wasn't him that created all of the stink. It was them. Anyway, my point is this. Mr. Wallace, being a pioneer in this industry, it got me to thinking about another gentleman whose story many of you may have seen before, and his name was Wendell Scott. Wendell Scott single-handedly, and when I say single-handedly, I mean single-handedly, integrated NASCAR many years ago. Matter of fact, during NASCAR's actual inception. A lot of people don't know that Wendell Scott was a bootlegger turned race car driver. This was a bad dude. Now, I'm going to give y'all a quick overview of this cat, and then we're going to talk about him a little bit.
Wendell Scott surprised winner in Jacksonville 100. Buck Baker was flagged the winner. That's what they had the BS. Was flagged the winner. Jack Smith was original hailed as runner-up. Scott jumped out his 62 Chevrolet and insisted that he had won. I knew I'd won that race, Scott claimed. I had lapped Buck Baker 3 times. That's his BS, too. That's the way he make his answers.
He never got the trophy. That upset him more than anything.
I'm sure that the trophy meant as much to him as the money, even as badly as he needed the money.
My father always wanted his trophy. He never got it.
They come down this way.
Coming down?
Now, it took them till 2010. From 1963, I believe.
In Jacksonville, called Jacksonville Stock Car Racing Hall of Fame, and he's been a member of Hall of Fame since around '94, I believe. I think it's going to be a good night, and I really hope that it turns out to be a good thing for the Wendell Scott family, that should have been done the night that.
Anything that he was hoping and dreaming that this would what he had done would help somebody else. That things that he had done would open doors for other people. And he tried to leave that legacy.
He's an exception. I mean, if you look at all the people that won races in NASCAR, how many black guys have won a race? Only one, and that's Wendell.
I began to look back and try to find out who the successful black drivers were, and it was pitiful. They just weren't there.
NASCAR has made more strides than most people know. We are never going to see another Wendell Scott, but I think that we can see people who Wendell Scott would be very, very proud of.
All right, so just to give you a little bit of background, for those of you who are not, you want to know a little bit more about him, there's plenty of documentaries on this guy. In fact, he told one of his children many years ago when they were small that they would make movies and they would make music and things about him in the future, and it turned out to be true because he is truly a pioneer in NASCAR. He was the first black man to win a NASCAR Grand National, and from 1961 to 73, he had over 100 top 10 finishes and a cup win despite blatant racism. He won the Grand National race at Jacksonville Speedway in 1963 by 2 laps, but was only given his prize money and never awarded the trophy. And I think they just gave him his trophy. Finally, they gave it to the family in 2010. But they didn't give him his trophy. They didn't give him the money until everybody left the stadium. And that whole thing had to do with the fact that one thing they didn't want. Now, mind you, remember, he beat everybody on that track by 2 laps. They didn't want him kissing the beauty queen. After you win the race, you got to go up and kiss the beauty queen and get your trophy and your money. Well, they let the trophy go home with somebody else, gave him the money, which he needed very badly because during that time he could not get sponsors. He couldn't get people to back him financially, and he ran his race car on a shoestring, but he was able to put all of his children through college. It is said that he made about $120,000 over a 12-year period, about $180,000, something like that, over a 12-year period. Okay, we talking about a guy who did what he did for the love of racing. They say his work ethic was second to none. I even saw a clip where he was driving his own race car, went into the pit, got out of his race car, did his own pit work, changed his own tires, and got back in the car and got back in the race. Come on, man. Where they do that at? Okay? Now, my man Bubba Wallace, he got it going on, and I appreciate everything he's doing for the sport. I also want to give a shout-out to my man Kirk Price, who is, in my eyes, another pioneer in the sport because he is one of the NASCAR officials. He's actually on this feed with us this evening, and I appreciate you, Kirk, for checking in with me. That's my man, 50 grand right there. But Wendell Scott was a bad dude. All right, he passed away, I believe it was in 1990. He had spinal cancer, of all things. His daughter said that she believed it was because all the time he spent on his back laying on the ground working on them cars. You got to remember, he did all of this all the way from the 50s into the early 70s. He went through a lot. They say he endured unnecessary inspections, vandalism, people want to tear up his car, and even received death threats. That man did an awful lot, but yet this is another one of those unsung heroes that we don't get to hear about. What he went through in that sport, most people would not have been able to endure. It makes you think that there has to come a time where all doors are open. It makes you look at, and I try not to be one of those that get into this superiority, inferiority thing, but let's keep it 100. I always wonder why. If if some white people, the ones who believe they're so superior, if you genuinely and truly believe that, why must you work so hard to try and keep another group of people down? If you're as good as you say you are, you don't need to work that hard to stop us from showing who we are. There must be some level of fear in there that keeps you from knowing or keeps you believing that the only way for you to win is to cheat. Yes, Valencia, that is exactly right. Grease Lightning is the movie starring Richard Pryor. That is a loosely based story about Wendell Scott. If y'all get a chance, check it out. Grease Lightning. Lots of documentaries on YouTube as well. But if you are everything that you are supposed to be, you don't need to work that hard to stop me from letting me be who I am. Fair competition. Win, lose, or draw. I don't know, y'all. What we gonna do? What we gonna do? So apparently, if you weigh Wendell Scott out against the best of the best, here's a man with a record that is impeccable. There are very few out of thousands and thousands of NASCAR drivers that have never won any races. We got one black man that actually did it. That puts him head and shoulders above a whole bunch of folks. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a beautiful thing, just in case y'all didn't know. So, I believe we got most of our stuff done here today. I want to take the time and remind you all not to forget to order your Royalty from Royalty LLC. And my people right there. That's some good stuff too, y'all. She's out of Florida. Let me give y'all the right information here. There she is, Royalty LLC, 3840 Arbor Mill Circle, Orange Park, Florida, 32065. Good stuff, man. I drink this tea every day. I enjoy it. It's good stuff. In fact, I think I'm about to have to order some more here pretty quick. So we got to get her done. Let's see. Regina, they are trash and they know it. That's why they... Okay, Gina. We ain't gonna be doing no name calling today. Stop it now. Stop it. I see you. Okay. Great racing documentary. First black NASCAR driver. Absolutely. Alejandro. Actually, and there have been a few since him and that precede Bubba Wallace. But I think Bubba Wallace, his fame is one of the fortunate things about Bubba Wallace is that he actually drives a Richard Petty car, which is a very famous number, 43. And he's been in the game a very long time. To be on a Richard Petty team is a pretty big deal. Kirk said they also didn't want their track tore up, so they gave it to him. Yeah, I guess you're right. That wouldn't have been good. Be tearing up racetracks. So, look, I appreciate each and every one of y'all. There's so many. Cynthia, thank you for supporting my sponsor. I see you got a tea order in there. Thank you very much. There's so much news going on today, y'all, that I think I covered most of what I was going to cover for the day. But the main thing is that we all stay diligent and keep our eyes open. This coronavirus is no joke. Even here in Texas, they've had to roll back the plans to reopen the state, which was the most ridiculous damn thing they could have ever thought about doing. We're watching people over in China pushing, going around spraying down the streets, and we over here talking about opening up the bars. Well, even the governor of Florida came off his high horse today, and even right here in Texas. As a matter of fact, as of 12 o'clock this afternoon here in Texas, all bars are closed, and all restaurants are only allowed to operate at 50% capacity. And my thing is, you have nothing to lose by putting a mask on your face. Protect yourself, protect your loved ones. Don't be an idiot. It's just not necessary. These cases are surging, and you still got people running around talking about it doesn't exist. All I can say is I hope you get your Darwin Award and you enjoy it. Ladies and gentlemen, do not forget, get your copy of The Black Factor. They are available right now, bmforbes.com. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. That'll be BM Forbes. I'm on YouTube. And you can also check me out on Twitch and at The Black Factor. So in Twitch, sometimes I go on there and I just do little history stuff while I'm in the mood streaming that doesn't come on Facebook. So y'all keep all of that in mind. And I'm going to let you get on down because I'm going to get on down. And I want everybody to have themselves a fantastic, wonderful, stupendous, superfluous evening. Love, peace, and chicken grease, y'all.
Door number 2 or door number 3.
Oh, wow. Oh, all right, okay, all right. No, wait, okay. All right, no, wait. Oh, wait, Monty. Door number 1, 3, 2, 8. No, wait, hold on.